Hello and welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers, by gamers. I'm Bajo.
And I'm Junglist, and this week, we've got the touch!
That's right, Jung. We review Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. Is it more than meets the eye, or rubbish in the skin?
We'll also celebrate the video game work of Michael Jackson. Plus, Ray gets to the bottom of gaming's cosplay culture by seeking out the best-dressed gamers in Australia. But first, can you guess the game for this week?
Jung, where's my news? Quick sticks. Quick sticks, quick sticks.
Quick sticks! Good game!
Game developers, get out of it. Mythic Entertainment and BioWare have been merged into one company by their publisher, Electronic Arts, in the past week. Mythic, the developers behind Warhammer Online, and BioWare, the studio responsible for the Mass Effect series, were restructured to come under the same management, although they will both maintain their separate brands. According to reports, Mythic CEO and co-founder Mark Jacobs has left his position as CEO of Mythic Entertainment, and the new combined studio's control will fall to BioWare's co-founder and CEO, Ray Mazuka. The company's new structure and leadership will reportedly not affect the future of development on games like Warhammer Online or BioWare's Dragon Age Origins, which will continue to be developed by their original teams. Following up on our report on Australia's planned internet filtering scheme, the federal government is reportedly turning its attentions to gamers by promising to censor gaming websites that provide games containing unclassified material. According to The Age, a spokesman for the Minister for Broadband, Senator Stephen Conroy, revealed that sites that sell games with unclassified content will all be targeted under the government's new scheme, none of which were outlined in Senator Conroy's initial proposal. Troubled games studio Midway Games have failed to receive any other offers to buy its assets and intellectual properties after they were forced to sell due to bankruptcy. Warner Brothers emerged as the only bidder, offering more than $40 million to buy up the Mortal Kombat creators. But Midway administrators had put the company up for auction to try and attract a higher offer. With Warner as the sole bidder, the company's acquisition seems certain, although there is another twist in this story, because a film company is reportedly making a legal claim that they own some rights to the Mortal Kombat properties. Threshold Entertainment, the company responsible for the 1995 feature film based on the game's series, are claiming that they own the exclusive rights to the movie and TV rights to Mortal Kombat, and that they cannot be sold to Warner Brothers. The legal claim could slow down or halt the sale of Midway's assets.
In ages past, long before the Intertron, people used to use their imaginations to entertain themselves. I'm told this involves thinking of fun things and then acting them out in real life.
It's like some sort of virtual reality.
Exactly. Of course, there were imagination aids, such as board games or miniature battle games like Warhammer. One of the spin-offs of these pit all the races of Warhammer, such as orcs or humans, elves, and ratmen, in the violent sporting arena known as Blood Bowl.
Return your swords to their sheaths, dispel your magic spells, unstring your bows. There's far more important business.
Blood Bowl!
Yes! And our welcome goes out to all of you.
Blood Bowl is innovative in that it manages to put spikes on literally every surface possible. The game loosely follows the rules of gridiron. You have to get the ball from one end of the field down to the other to score a touchdown.
But the similarities stop there. You can make as many forward passes as you want. Pummeling the opposition is encouraged. In fact, while he's on the ground, why not pummel him again and make sure he doesn't get back up? If the ref sees it and sends you off, you can always bribe him.
The pitch is no place to lie down for a sleep.
After an uppercut like that, he doesn't have any choice.
The key here is to use the advantages of each race. In theory, you could run a skink right down to the other end of the field and catch the ball there. It's unlikely though, because every time you run past another player, it's an opportunity for them to tackle you. And if you get tackled when you're on the offensive, that's it, that's the end of your round.
Catching a ball in the end zone, getting knocked down, all these things are decided in the traditional Warhammer way, die rolls. And here is where the game falls apart for me. Watching your opponent fumble around trying to pick up the ball for a few turns, which happens quite often, gets ridiculous. Meanwhile, your own players are taking die rolls to not trip over their own feet, which happens quite often. And all this fumbling around causes so many turnovers, the audience gets whiplash. There's also the option to play all this out in real time, which is probably every Blood Bowl fan's dream come true, but to me it just looked like a faster-paced, incoherent mess. It made me think that any game designer that relies so heavily on die rolls has taken one too many spiked balls to the head. I don't really have a problem with the adaptation. I think it's actually the original game that sucks.
Blood Bowl has been quite popular, though.
Yeah, but once upon a time it was a board game and die rolls were necessary. There was imagination involved. Now we don't have to imagine it, we can see. It's actually quite crap.
To each their own, I guess. I found personally that each different race with their own flavour in a brutal sports arena was a brilliant idea. And think of what they could do with each race's unique features, like chaos mutations.
Yeah, well, last night my bacon smoothie was a great idea too, on paper. And besides, most of it just came down to a simple trade-off between power and speed anyway. Like the skinks are more agile and the orcs are more violent, and every race gets access to one really big guy like a Kroxigor or an ogre, or in the case of the wood elves, a tree. But that's about it.
Well, that's not entirely true, Jung. The Skaven had the ability to tunnel underground, and some of the bigger characters like the ogres can throw a halfling with the ball down the field, and those sneaky goblins whip out the chainsaws. The comedic element of Warhammer is definitely there.
So the comedy's enough for you to play it?
No, but you can see the effort that's gone into these little extras. And when I see these things, it gave me a bit of a laugh.
There's a lot of assumed knowledge in Blood Bowl, so I guess if you are already into it, you might get a kick out of seeing how the whole thing plays out in real time. For the rest of us, the tutorial does a painful job of explaining a game which in the end isn't worth it. I'm giving it a 3.
I think you're being a little harsh, but I did expect more though. I'm giving it 6 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Good game.
The music world has lost a legend with the passing of the king of pop, Michael Jackson. As a musician, he had an immeasurable influence on our airwaves and dance moves. But as an entertainer, he did much more than that, and he even left a significant impression on the world of video gaming, which all started with this. It was loosely based on the feature film of the same name, which featured a compilation of Jackson's songs made into elaborate film clips, including a climactic rendition of his 1987 hit Smooth Criminal. Where Michael actually ends up turning into a giant robot. The movie was good fun, but we think the game was better. It had plenty of button-mashing arcade gameplay, and on the soundtrack were some of Jackson's biggest hits. It also featured many of his classic moves, like the moonwalk, or his trademark hat throw, all of which could be used as deadly attacks. And he could even turn into a giant robot. The arcade Moonwalker game came out at the height of Michael Jackson's fame, and as a result, a home console release was inevitable. But by the time it came to the Sega Mega Drive, something was very different. Gone was the pseudo 3D isometric perspective, and gone too was the beat-em-up gameplay, and in its place was a side-scrolling platformer. And it was really good. So good, in fact, that it still qualifies as one of the Mega Drive's best games. As Michael, you had to rescue kidnapped children from gangsters, street hoods, and zombies, among other baddies. And not only did it feature all the music and action of the original, but it also had more of this. After striking up a relationship with game maker Sega, Jackson continued to collaborate with them to make a new interactive attraction for a chain of amusement parks. Sega developed a ride called Michael Jackson's Scramble Training. It was a giant hydraulically powered flight simulator, and Michael was your pilot. Scramble Training was released into Sega's amusement parks in 1993, an unfortunate year for the troubled pop star. And as the scandalous criminal accusations started flying, Sega quietly removed Scramble Training, and it's never been seen since. With the cumulative years of negative press, you'd think that would be the end of Michael's video game achievements. But 1999 proved to be a big comeback year for Jackson, at least as far as video games were concerned. And he chose to make this comeback in another Sega game, Space Channel 5 for the Dreamcast. The button-mashing rhythm game featured a dancing heroine named Eulala, who had to save the Earth by dancing her way through an alien armada. In the later levels of the game, a character named Space Michael appears briefly to dance alongside Eulala, and does a few very familiar dance steps.
Let's escape to the control room.
Roger.
Michael in Space proved popular enough to return for the sequel, 2002's Space Channel 5 Part 2.
Michael!
Get out of here, Eulala. This is a trap.
This time, Michael had a much bigger role in the game, because this time the aliens had decided to kidnap him first, and Eulala was forced to rescue and recruit him into her dancing troupe to help stop the aliens with the power of dance.
You've got to save Space Michael.
Roger. Let's dance!
Dancing in a game came easy to Michael Jackson. Something that must have been much more difficult was this.
Presenting the King of Pop, Michael.
You can't win. The title's mine.
Jackson.
Don't you know who you're messing with?
Ready to Rumble Round 2 came out in the year 2000 for the Dreamcast. It was a boxing game with a very broad sense of humour, and one of its many in-jokes was the appearance of Michael Jackson as an unlockable character. Battle your way through the game twice, and MJ was all yours. Along with appearing as himself, Michael Jackson's music has also been used in many games, including Grand Theft Auto Vice City, which featured Billie Jean, and Guitar Hero World Tour, which featured Beat It. At the time of his passing, Michael and his company were rumoured to be working on a brand new game that was supposed to be ready for Christmas this year to coincide with his planned concert tour, but alas, we're unlikely to see it now. And with that, we've come to the end. His career had both the greatest highs and the most crushing lows, and as it comes to a close, Michael Jackson will certainly be remembered for the surgery, the strangeness, and the scandal, but he'll also be remembered for his music, and for us in particular, his video games.
The world's most successful card game has a new digital form. I'm not talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! Eat Your Heart Out Pokemon, it's Magic the Gathering, and the Duels of the Planeswalkers spin-off has come to Xbox Live Arcade.
You'd think that card games and video games don't work together very well, which is probably why they tried to make Magic a real-time strategy game on the old Xbox. And you saw how that turned out, didn't you, John?
It bombed, like Donkey Kong. But you know, Magic isn't a cheap hobby. And just having a video game version means you don't have to pay for all those cards. And you don't even need a friend over to play. You can jump online or face the AI.
Bringing out land cards allows you to tap them for mana to cast spells, the most common of which are creatures, which each have an attack and defense rating. You need to attack with these creatures to whittle down your enemy, who uses own creatures to block.
Magic itself is a fascinating game where the rules are literally made to be broken by special cards. But they've kept it simple in Duels of the Planeswalkers. The most complicated rules you'll have to worry about are flying or trample. So, given it's the same old Magic rules we know and love, these video game versions mainly come down to presentation and features, and this doesn't disappoint.
There are puzzle scenarios such as trying to win a round in one turn, and also a pretty decent two-player co-op mode where you share the same health but you each have your own deck. But one of the first things you'll probably notice is how hard the AI is. It thinks 6 steps ahead and can be very aggressive.
Sometimes it'll make you wait a little too long in between phases when really no one can do anything, but that's kind of necessary for online play, which works great. The layout of the cards is great too, but there is one feature missing that's kind of important. You can't create your own decks.
Well, I guess it's not aimed at real-life card players like you, Jung. You know, the developers said they were aiming for a more arcadey version of the game. There's an extensive how-to-play tutorial section and also a huge glossary on all the terms. It's kind of like a 5.5 wall of text with regeneration.
And as we are the show for gamers by gamers, we should mention Magic Online, which is the PC version, which has been around for years. You need the net to play it, and you can construct your own decks in that one. There's a lot more options as well as hundreds of thousands of players. But as far as the Xbox Live Arcade version goes, final thoughts?
You know, to get this virtual deck of cards for reals would cost you hundreds of dollars, and Jung, I've already plowed more hours into this than most AAA games, and I'm not done yet. I'm giving it 9 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Online play works great. You can play against your friends or ranked matches, or you can join the mentor system. I'm giving it 7.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Good game.
For some gamers, playing the game isn't enough. They want to become their favorite characters, or at least wear their clothes.
It's called costume play, or cosplay for short, and Ray goes undercover to find out more about this gaming subculture.
I started cosplaying in 2007. I actually started because I just found the site for Animania on the internet when I was just searching. And so I thought, oh, this would be really actually quite boring if I just went along. So why don't I make a costume? My first video game cosplay was Link from Zelda.
So with your costumes, how do you get started?
Well, firstly, I spent a lot of time getting the reference images. So there's a lot of official art. I go and play the games or watch the anime that they're in. And so from that, I make the costume. But after I make the costume, I usually go back and look at the games again to see the sort of poses and actions and stuff they do. Because like when someone asks for a photo, you have like 3 seconds to jump into a pose. So you really have to have something there that you can go into.
So what inspired you to start making this Zero suit?
Well, for one thing, she's my main character when I play Super Smash Bros. So it's really fun to sort of be the person who you play as in the game.
Haley set the bar pretty high, and unfortunately I never really paid much attention to textile class in school. But I'm gonna have a crack at it anyway, and with a little bit of help from the AVC wardrobe department, hopefully I can transform myself into the Ace Attorney's daughter herself, Trucy Wright. Supernova with Haley. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty nervous because like it's our first time doing a skit and we haven't got that much practice. So.
What was it like putting on the finishing touches?
It was just, I did it on Thursday night. It was like the last coat of paint. I just sort of broke down in happiness. It's like, finally it's over.
So why did you choose to come as a Red Ranger?
I'm a big Power Ranger fan. I collect the DVDs and I'm just like, I don't know. I'm 22 and I still love the stuff.
It's the only time that I could probably dress up like this, so I might as well, so yeah.
He's my favorite character. Who doesn't love Yoshi?
It's not as if it's not anyone else dressed up, so if you're thinking, oh, it's a bit weird, just have to look around.
So how long did it take you to make your costume?
About 18 months.
About 2 to 3 weeks.
Well, I've been making it since March, so yeah.
I've been making mine since December.
Just today, yeah. Just cut it up.
And what do you do in your normal life?
I work in superannuation. Absolutely nothing, just play games.
School?
Microbiologist.
So you're a microbiologist?
Yes.
So we're here with Caddy and Tsubagi, who are the judges of the cosplay competition. What are you guys looking for?
We're definitely looking for someone who has a really outstanding costume as well as a really outstanding skit. They both go hand in hand and it's judged evenly, so they have to be very good presentation-wise and very good sewing-wise.
Hello! Welcome to the National Cosplay Championship!
Fixed it. Oh, stupid shield now.
How do you feel?
I feel pretty good. Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that the audio didn't work for us, but still people liked us, and like, yeah, I'm really proud of my costume still. I've got lots of compliments and stuff, and that's what matters to me.
Welcome, the winner for Best Costume, Lizzie Smith as Jet the Hawk from Sonic the Hedgehog.
And you're going to be back next year?
Yeah, definitely.
If you're going to cosplay, Jung, which character would you choose?
I think Captain Price from Call of Duty for the fearsome Fu Manchu. How about you?
Definitely Kratos from God of War, for the war paint and also so I could shout all day.
I will make you suffer! Give me that sandwich!
I like to keep this for close encounters.
It's creepy.
Good game!
Based on the recent Transformers film comes the movie tie-in game Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. It follows the plot of the movie, which is quite an achievement because the movie's plot had more holes in it than a salad strainer.
Betch, I know you're upset about the movie. You've been going on about it all week.
Rubbish! Rubbish, stupid man! You're wrecking it! Stop wrecking things! I hate you! Hate! Hate! Hate!
But let's try and focus on the game.
No promises, Jung. I know some people like the film, but why? In the game, there's an Autobot and Decepticon campaign, but mostly it's a tiny sandbox spam fest with increasingly repetitive enemies, dialogue, scenarios, and just generally bad game design. Your missions range from moving one person to another location, killing all the enemies you can, and escorting convoys. And Jung, I don't know why the Transformers don't just pick up the convoy and move it to the next location. It would be a lot easier and less painful.
As it is, transforming is used as kind of a sprint button. You also use it to launch into more advanced attacks or to leap great distances. Bumblebee is by far the most fun Transformer to use as he has a stun move which makes life easy. At first it's fun transforming and jumping around the place, but aside from the look of Transformers, everything's very simple and low budget.
Combat is a cross between King of the Monsters and MechWarrior, but not nearly as fun as either. Firing projectile weapons is effective, yet kind of unrewarding. All you want to do is get up close and have an awesome robot fight, but close combat is kind of like rock'em sock'em robots. Jung, if that had been good enough, that would have been enough for me, but you can't chain any combos together or grab an enemy and throw them against the wall. Online is much more fun, but only if you plot that fun on a graph and then zoom right in to see a reasonable increase.
Strangely, the airborne transformers are the worst to use, probably because you can't fly very high, and the maps are very tiny. And every time you think the map's gonna change, such as when you need to rescue Sam from the university, all of a sudden he's right there with you in the same warehouse district you've been in for the last hour.
What a coincidence, Jung. The game also makes up lame excuses to send waves and waves of enemies at you.
We're downloading telemetry from the Decepticons you defeat. A little more data and we can locate Sam.
And it adds pretty pointless time limits in a failed attempt to make the game more exciting. A 6-minute time limit probably would have helped the film though, John.
Bajo!
Can't contain my rage! Bollocks! Look, there's not much here to sink your teeth into. The AI routines are so predictable and not fun to engage at all. The only good thing about this game, and I stress the only good thing, is that some of the achievements unlock full episodes of original Transformers, which joyfully reminded me that robot dinosaurs might be useful.
Robot dinosaurs might be useful. You have my authorization.
I'm giving it 3 out of 10 rubber chickens, but only because it's still better than sitting through that sensationalized, incomprehensible mess the film made of my fond childhood memories. Junglist?
You're so bitter.
Justified bitter.
It's a meal deal game, which we had to put down when on top of everything else, a mission near the end bugged out, and it wouldn't let us go any further. I'm giving it 3 out of 10 rubber chickens as well.
So, did you guess the game for this week?
It was Transbot, a dodgy Transformers-inspired side-scrolling shooter. Released way back in 1986 on the Sega Master System, the game portrayed a gritty post-apocalyptic future after nuclear war drove humanity underground in solar year 2000.
You pilot the CA-214, aka the Transbot, an experimental astroplane that transforms into a flying robot. Your mission was simple, to shoot strange red orbs from the skies and somehow save humanity.
Now to next week's show.
We'll be floating like butterflies and possibly stinging like bees in the latest pugilistic punch-up, Fight Night, Round 4.
We'll saddle up, take aim, and fire our rubber chickens at the Wild West sequel, Call of Juarez Bound in Blood.
Plus, the blogosphere. It's so hot right now, and Ray chats to some of the biggest names in Australian video game blogging. Don't forget to leave your comments and criticisms on the Good Game Forum. Until next week, gamers, Bajo out.
Junglist out.
Good game.